We all know who Mandela is, right? So I was fortunate enough to meet the man in the cell next door to him, right? Ahmed Katada, right? And as we were chatting, oh, you're a psychiatrist, right? Great. So I asked him a question in line with what I thought was psychiatry. I asked him, did they try and break you physically, mentally, emotionally while you were in jail? He said something very interesting. He says, they didn't just try and break us physically, mentally, emotionally, they also tried to break us spiritually. And you can just imagine torture, whatever it was to break them, because if you broke those guys on the island, you broke the struggle as a manner, in a manner of speaking. But he said something very interesting. They tried to break us physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, but we were always, always optimistic we will be free. Freedom isn't an outcome, it was a purpose. You and I want to be free, isn't it? One of the big deals about not wanting to come here is that you didn't feel free, all right? So he says we were always optimistic we'll be free. So freedom was an assertion, authentic and in alignment with something greater than who they were. Because it wasn't about freedom for them, it was freedom for the whole country. All right? And then he said, and then it didn't like happen overnight, like, you did X amount and you will now be free, this is the outcome. It took them 27 years in jail, right? And okay, so, but then he added something very interesting. He says, but we never expected that the man in the cell next door to me would one day be in the presidential office and I would be sitting in his office as well. It was an outcome beyond what they even expected, wanted, or desired. Right? But then it demands authenticity with no expectation, just being authentic to what you desire in terms of the truth, and the outcome will be beyond what you even expected. Does that resonate? And that then leads you to feeling calm, in control, balanced and free. All right? And that allows you to be in the middle. But very important, as you said, it's not easy. Why? Because these forces will buffet you, will charge at you. There's always people important in our lives. There's always others we value. There's always people we give our energy to. But as much as you're chasing their people, I'll draw a line going up into the top, right? Going up there and draw a circle on top. And that would represent, have some purpose, some goals, some truth, some focus that you're aiming towards. That allows your pendulum to be more at rest, isn't it? What we do as human beings, we look for stimulation. Where do we look for it from, besides TV? We look for it from people, isn't it? You agree that we want that, and therefore we then act in reaction to them. So instead of reacting in reaction, this allows you to be in response to a greater goal or purpose. So you're less buffeted by persons and peoples around you. Right? I'm going to use a sporting analogy because you said of coaching, right? So for example, if you, in cricket for example, what do they call it? Sledging, yes, when they tell you off on the field, isn't it? Like apparently if you play the Australians, they're quite good at sledging, right? And if you're quite a sensitive guy and you come there and someone says something really nasty about your cat, perchance you're really sensitive about your cat, probably you get a bit worked up, isn't it? And you might take, and it's the wicket keeper saying that, you probably might turn around and want to do something with the bat, isn't it? You agree? But if you have a goal that I will win this match, I will win this World Cup, and that's your only thing, you're oblivious to what might be going around in terms of negativity, and you are so focused on your goal, you see the opportunities rather than the obstacles. Does that resonate? Because yes, there will be people trying to push you one way or the other, but if your goal is truly authentic and in alignment with who you are, that's all you have to focus on. Does that resonate? Be careful though, we always react to people. It means moving from a reactionary Newtonian space to a quantum space. Quantum space is where you're not just an action-reaction, you open up to the infinite potential of who you are. So let me give you a 5-step process, hopefully to get to the middle, right? So one is to introspect, okay? Why is introspection so difficult? It's easy to point out what's bad in the world out there, but to point out the bad within us is tougher. We all want to play, this is who we are, and create a fake illusion of ourselves. And some of us are so caught up in the fake delusion of who we are, we refuse to let go. And we hold on to that facade of who we are. And the thing about depression, it literally takes bullets and shoots through your facade. Yeah. Isn't it? Because we start believing this is who I am, and then you realize this is not who I am. Yeah. Isn't it? Because at some level, the universe doesn't care about our fake facades. It just does its own thing, or life just does its own thing, isn't it? If you thought you were the most, example, attractive person in the world, and the person that you really care about dumps you, then your facade got broken, isn't it? And therefore you now have to live with giving up your facade, and that's what we generally struggle with, right? So introspection means seeing the good and the bad, the right and the wrong, isn't it? And one man famous for introspection is in fact Mandela. He speaks of self-reflection thinking, right? So he says, I could have gotten very, in fact you agree, if you were in jail for 27 years, you'd be flying one end or the other, right? So he describes, I could have gotten very angry at what suffering my people were going through, but I chose not to get angry and thereby set myself free. I kept my head facing towards the sun and my feet walking forward. I decided I could not and would not lose my dignity. In fact, dignity and integrity is another virtue that we need to aspire to. All right? So introspection, and introspection then leads us to awareness, acceptance and acknowledgement. Awareness, acceptance, acknowledgement of what? Of yourself, of the truth. Now the very important thing about truth, why we struggle with it, is we view the truth as brutal. We've got to shift our mindset to view the truth as compassionate. Now, why is that tough? If you have the capacity to view your story compassionately, that means you view your misfortune as fortune. You view your whatever you saw as the absolute sin as a blessing. Because sometimes some of us had to be kicked up the butt to get to where we needed to in life. We all know what's pushing us. You need something to push you to get somewhere. You understand what I'm saying? In fact, they've done studies on people who are in so-called successful. Generally it's wealth, isn't it? And they found there was generally some adverse circumstance in their lives that pushed them to be something. If you grew up too comfortable, you and I grew up complacent. Isn't it? Does that resonate? You gotta shift it, because what you're saying to me, you either can succumb to it or you can react to it. And okay, I'm not saying get angry, but sometimes some of us can use anger positively, isn't it? Do something about it. Does that resonate? Show me someone who's got something to run away from. Isn't it? If you grew up in a survivalist environment, you can either succumb to it or decide, I will not be a survivalist. I'll get myself to a level of comfort. Isn't it? So the idea is to become aware, accept and acknowledge the compassionate truth, rather than seeing it as brutally, yeah? There's a guy called Brian Rose who does the series called London Real. It's on YouTube, right? And he interviews a particular punk rocker who's been through tons of abuse as a kid, including sexual abuse. And one of the things Brian Reel does with him, he does the Iron Man triathlon, one of them, right? And one of the things that makes this punk rocker decide, I want to do this. He says, I was abused as a young boy, even sexually. I decided I will not be a victim of it. I'll show you how to rise up from it. He turned it into something that gives him reason to go ahead in life. You understand? We have to use it. You can use it as the greatest thing against you that makes you cower and retreat, or you use it that I will rise up as a result of it. You can say, I am because of my circumstances, or you choose to be in spite of your circumstances. Be careful, because sometimes we promote a culture of blame, and others are responsible for your life. That's why we struggle. It's seen as amazing. Oh wow, we've identified the bad guy. But the hassle is you still have to move on with your life. You want to choose that you're a victim of your circumstances or the creator of your destiny. So everything and anything has happened to you is to push you forward. Is to rise up above it. You get what I'm saying? And in a nutshell, it's about shifting it completely. that you want to rise up above it or be living your life mundane and dull because of it. Like, there's two kids sitting on the wall, two brothers, one with a bottle of alcohol, one without. And they asked the guy with the bottle of alcohol, why do you drink? Because my father drank. They asked his brother, why don't you drink? Because my father drank. Same circumstances, same situation, different attitude, different response. So it's literally just taking your mind and twisting it the other way around and saying, wait a minute, let me see what's this resulted in. You understand? Because some of us are here, or maybe in a position of your life where you try to escape circumstances. You don't want to go back to where you grew up. It reminds you bad memories, right? But hey, you're here because you decided to take a step and move out of those negative circumstances. You understand? But we all don't want a fire behind us to get pushed, right? It's a different talk where you say, it's not just about what pushes you, it's also about what pulls you. And that's where we have somewhere to go to. All right? And when we have somewhere to go to, it makes it easier to recognize seeing the misfortune as fortune. So it reframes how you live your life. And it's so powerful that anything negative, you start seeing how can it be positive. You understand? And you actually then reduce the power you give to people. And then you take on power. Because things just happen then. It's not a big deal. And that empowers you so much that you move beyond viewing things as good or bad, right and wrong. And the reason you do that is because your mind does that. Your mind does these things because it has to keep you safe. For example, if someone's holding a black mamba up here, right? And they kind of like squeeze that venom out and puts it in a glass of milk. Are you going to drink that milk? No, so the mind knows what it has to do. Don't drink that milk. Because sometimes even though it looks like the most amazing milk, right? You won't, because you know it's got poison in it. So it keeps you safe. So it keeps you out of danger. But the hassle is, hey, the fact that it kept you out of danger is to view it differently. And you're far more objective about it rather than being subjected to it, yeah? What human beings do, we try to control situations. The idea is to learn to control your mind, and thereby you have control of the situation. What we try to do is control the situation and hope our minds will be okay. It's like this, if you're watching football on TV, right, and you're shouting at the guy, kick the ball, come on, you missed it. What you and I are trying to do is control the situation. The guy can't even hear you. All right? You need to control your mind. In fact, the best football players in the world now, as much as they all are skilled, they all know how to kick the ball, are those who control the minds. If you control your mind, you control the situation. Beyond that, if you control the situation, you can control the world. I mean, in terms of controlling your mind. Show me someone who controls his mind and I'll show you someone who can control the world. Because then you are not a victim of circumstances or situations. You can control and facilitate your destiny. Detach, forgive, yeah. Forgive, let go, forget. And I already hear some of the noises. Yes, why? Why is it so tough to forgive? You sat here for the last 10, 20 years of your life, right? Because of someone in your life. The moment you forgave, that means the last 20 years of your life that you sat here was your doing entirely. It had nothing to do with the person you put here. So you could have done whatever you wanted, regardless of that person, but you sat there for the last 20 years wasting your time. You understand? And it's like you release a bird that's been in a cage for the last 20 years. What does it do? It wants to go back and say, you and I are like that. In fact, you know what's you and my cages? It's our minds. We always want for someone to blame because to recognize you had the power is crazy. Is like dangerous. What the heck do I do with this? Because then what you've done is refuse to allow yourself to be one side or the other because of a person. And we hate that. Forgiveness is that the fact is I can't guarantee you'll change their behavior. Then you've got to recognize them for what they are rather than what you'd like them to be. So three things: see people for what they are rather than what you'd like them to be. See them for what they are rather than what they make themselves out to be. And see people for what they are rather than what the whole world may make them out to be. People will be whatever they want to be. You can decide you want to forgive your government. Doesn't mean they'll change. isn't? You understand? If you go back to treasury, you will still find no money there, isn't it? All right? So you forgive, but still see them for what they are. Does that resonate? But what you're doing by forgiving is not allowing them to necessarily impact your emotions negatively. And what's I'm going to add to this in terms of the forgiveness is you still give compassion, kindness, and caring, but you see it for exactly what it is. Move forth with honor, purpose, truth, meaning find some direction, some purpose, some truth.